Hello there, I'm Lloyd Evans. Welcome to the attic. It's time for another voicemail. Today's voicemail is from an anonymous caller. Let's listen to what they have to say.
Hi, Lloyd. I'm a patron of yours. I've been a follower of your channel for a couple of years, a patron for a few months now. I would like my name to be anonymous for this, especially under the circumstances as you'll hear in this message. I am a flight attendant for a major U.S. carrier, and just this past week, I was getting on the hotel shuttle at a downtown location, and there was some Jehovah's Witness cart witnessing going on there at the corner. And one of the flight attendants on the van told me how much she thought how kind they were and just loved them. And it brought her to tears every time she saw them. And I was a little bit perplexed by that. So I engaged just a tad, but there were other employees on the shuttle, and I was concerned not to create an uncomfortable environment or situation. But I said, well, yeah, I believe that their worshipers are very kind. I was also raised as a Jehovah's Witness. And she said, I was too, and I'm just getting back into it. I kind of left it at that until we got into the terminal, and we had some alone time on the aircraft. And we somewhat shared our experiences. I had just about me a little bit. I had successfully faded. It started when I moved out and moved about 100 miles away in a buffer zone in a condo community that was, to be frank, had a guardhouse that you had to be on the list to get in. So I couldn't be subject to their intrusive, untimely confrontations. And they knew I traveled for a living. They also knew I went and visited my parents a lot, 100 miles north. And so I was able to successfully fade without ever getting disfellowshipped. But her experience was that she was never baptized, and she had suffered some sort of trauma in the last few years that set her back quite a bit. I didn't press for the details, and she didn't offer any, but her sentiment was that the world had really let her down. And because she had never been baptized, I think she had sort of replaced all of her hope that, the reason she wasn't happy was because she had never joined. We did discuss a few things about the disfellowshipping and the shunning and how hard that is on people. But since she wasn't baptized as an adolescent, she never really had to go through that situation. But we do, in the airline industry, have a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community that we are all friends with and that have been very supportive and kind to us. And she also has a family member that is, and she had struggled with that as well, as far as believing that we should totally isolate ourselves. But she told me that the person conducting her study and also her brother, that was an elder, was okay with her continuing to associate with her friends. And I said, do you mean just continuing working, or you could continue to associate? She goes, I just can't go to this one person's wedding, but they said I can still be allowed to hang out with these people. I found that to be very contradictory to the videos that I've seen from jw.org. And I'm, it's perhaps her study holder or her brother are more progressive, but I am a little bit concerned that there is a bait and switch going on, especially with the lowering numbers of Jehovah's Witnesses particularly in families of, legacy not continuing on and people falling out over time. I was curious, do you think, or have you heard from any of your insider information of an effort of a concerted kind of bait and switch of people who are like-minded like her, thinking that, well, it's all good, we can still be friendly with these people, when we know in fact that is not the doctrinization that they're getting from the videos. I'd love to hear your feedback on that, and thanks for all you do. Good night, Lloyd.
Wow, thank you so much for that message. That was fascinating. First of all, thank you so much for supporting the channel as a patron. That's very generous of you. And thank you for sharing this fascinating situation regarding your colleague. Just for the record, I think you've dealt with everything perfectly, in terms of the way I would manage things. And it's always easier, isn't it, to go into spectator mode and just kind of peer into someone else's life or their work situation and say, oh yeah, you should do this, 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 and this. And that's what I end up doing, to be fair, in many of these voicemails. But when the rubber meets the road and you're actually in that situation and, emotions are involved, such as your trauma from experiencing shunning or having to deal with the whole fading situation, which it sounds like you've executed perfectly. When emotions get involved and you're in these situations and you don't have time to prepare, you don't have time to practice, you don't have time to kind of get in this kind of positive zone, this positive mindset, it can be very easy to do it wrong. And it seems as though you haven't done it wrong at all. You've been the consummate professional in this situation, which is that of a colleague, a coworker, not being fully a Jehovah's Witness or not having the true Jehovah's Witness experience because she was never baptized, and yet holding a candle for this organization and being very vocal about holding a candle for the organization. And yeah, I think based on what you've said, there's nothing I could improve on there in terms of how you have dealt with the situation. And I'd be fascinated to know how this plays out, because I can't help but feel sorry for your colleague. It sounds a little bit like the self-fulfilling prophecy thing, where even though she's never been baptized, she's grown up with this ideology that everything outside of the Jehovah's Witness bubble is evil and everyone is bad and everyone's out to exploit her, and only terrible things can happen to her if she fails to get baptized, or if she leaves the organization or tries to make a life for herself in the world. And what tends to happen, I've interviewed so many people where this has happened, is because it's lodged in your mind, it's coded into your mind that only terrible things can happen. Only terrible things end up happening because you're mentally rigged for it to go wrong. And you end up getting involved in all sorts of self-destructive behaviors that really can chew you up and leave you worse off. So it's very insidious, and I really do feel for your colleague, and I hope that your colleague is able to, before she ends up getting fully roped in, I hope she's able to see that, even based on her interactions with her worldly work colleagues, clearly not everybody in Satan's system of things is interested in using her, exploiting her, being in any way abusive or hurting her in any way. I really, really hope she's able to get through this. And she has a major advantage in having you as a friend, it sounds like. As regards this about the LGBTQ plus community, I think you're spot on. I think there's some bait and switch going on. I think that whoever's studying with her, and you mentioned her brother is an elder, I think they're being utterly disingenuous and flat out lying when they say that it's acceptable for her to associate. I mean, where in the Bible does it say that you can associate with someone who's gay? You just can't go to their wedding. I would just say, well, I wouldn't tell you to say this because I don't want to spoil anything, because you're doing everything perfectly. But I suppose my question would be, show me the verse. It sounds an awful lot like the Book of Opinions, as I would call it. If an elder is saying, oh, well, here's what you should do in X situation, but in Y situation, it's slightly different and you can be friends or pretend to be friends. Where is the Bible verse? Would be my question. You're making it up as you go along. And not only are you making it up as you go along, brother, elder, whoever he is, you're also misrepresenting the beliefs and the teachings of the organization you represent. Because it's not just about gay people, it's about anyone who's worldly. You shouldn't have as your friends, as your association, those who are worldly. And by extension, that applies to anyone who isn't living by the puritanical, draconian moral code that Jehovah's Witnesses impose, whereby even if you so much as have sex with a consenting adult who, in a heterosexual context, you're to be shunned and people are supposed to ignore you. So what a hypocrite, quite frankly, this poor woman's brother is. Where's the verse? Would be my question. But no, to answer your question, I don't sense, or I haven't seen any indication that Jehovah's Witnesses are doing this as a matter of routine. I think it's just simply a case of this poor woman's Jehovah's Witness contacts trying to, as you say, bait and switch her and fool her into thinking that the Jehovah's Witness religion is more tolerant than it really is, because they know full well that as a flight attendant or as someone who's in any occupation where she's in regular contact with worldly people, it would be a massive problem for her if she were to have the ideology towards gay people that the leaders of the Jehovah's Witness group expect. But again, I have nothing but praise for the mature, professional way that you've handled this situation. I wish, quite frankly, that more ex-Jehovah's Witnesses could extend this sort of kindness and compassion and sensitivity when they're interacting with people who, for whatever reason, are in this Jehovah's Witness mindset. It's not about winning battles. It's not about proving that you're right or proving that they're wrong. It's just about listening. It's just about being kind and hearing people out and maybe sowing some seeds here or there. But all you really need to do is just listen and be kind. And that's exactly what you've done. So well done. Keep it up. If you do feel like updating us, I'm sure the viewers would appreciate an update, but I fully understand if you're not able to. And thank you once again for your generous support of the channel as a patron. That's all we have time for. Don't forget that if you'd like to leave a voicemail, the thing to do is go to speakpipe.com/Cedars, remembering to indicate clearly if you don't want me to broadcast your message on this channel. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching.